everyone. Myself Pritili Modak. On behalf of Modak Academy, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar on the topic of Saiva Siddhanta and Introduction. Saiva Siddhanta is one of the most profound philosophical traditions of Indian spirituality, exploring the relationship between the individual soul, the universe, and Lord Shiva. We are truly honored to have with us our esteemed speaker, Dr. Murugesan A, from the Department of Philosophy and Comparative Religion, Visva Bharati University, Shantiniketan. Dr. Murugesan is a respected scholar in the fields of Indian philosophy and comparative religion, and his research and teaching have significantly contributed to the understanding of classical Indian philosophical tradition. Today, he will guide us through the fundamental ideas, historical development, and philosophical insight of Saiva Siddhanta, helping us development and philosophical insight of Saiva Siddhanta, helping us appreciate its relevance in the broader context of Indian intellectual and spiritual heritage. Before we begin the session, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker and all the participants who have joined us today. Now, without any further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Murugesan A to deliver his insightful lecture on Saiva Siddhanta and Introduction. Thank you. Sir, start.
Yeah. Am I audible to you? I hope I am
Yes, sir.
audible to all.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You're
I
audible.
am viewable as well. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pritili, for introducing me for this today's webinar. It's very interesting to hear from you. And you have introduced very well with, the subject, the talk which I am going to make, Saiva Siddhanta. Very brief introduction about Saiva Siddhanta you have given. Thank you. Thank you so much for your introduction. Good evening to all. Indeed, it's my joy and privilege to be here once again to deliver a lecture on Saiva Siddhanta and Introduction. It is one of the very good webinars that I understand that though it's a bit late evening, we are keeping comfort with everyone so that all can join across the world. That's very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much for having like this time also. That's very good. So today I'm going to talk on Saiva Siddhanta and Introduction. And this particular area is most of the time not able to, understand also. And most of the time it is ignored in the realm of philosophy, particularly the Indian philosophy. When I make that statement, ignored or just not, I don't want to say neglected, ignored in the sense that not, given as a priority to learn this particular philosophical tradition. Why? It's because to cost it. Of course, if you see in South India, particularly in Tamil Nadu, where the philosophy is taught, whether at the college or university level, we find Saiva Siddhanta, the schools of Shaivism, play a major role along with Sadharshana of the other regular Indian philosophical system. And of course, the other parts of India as well, for example, Banaras Hindu University, we find that, of course, Saiva Siddhanta plays a major role in their syllabus or the curriculum, a systematic way of learning that we find. And of course, in Jammu Kashmir also we find, along with the Kashmir Saivism, Saiva Siddhanta has been, clubbed into learn the Saiva philosophy. So as we understand this Saiva Siddhanta philosophy, I would like to just, start with a quote by Max Muller, a German philologist, Orientalist, Indologist, who had a very good study on Hinduism, including Saiva philosophy. where he was making a remarkable statement like this. Saiva Siddhanta is one of the perfect, clearest, cleverest human thought. I again repeat it. According to Max Muller, Saiva Siddhanta is one of the perfect, clearest, cleverest human thought in the world, which means he understands that how it is important, what it talks about in relation to God and the individual soul. This is what we understand here. And for this particular lecture, along with many other, you know, texts, there are two important texts that I have used here. The sources, when I say that, these are the two major sources that I use for my talk. The first one is T.B. Siddhalingaya, who has written a book on origin and development of Saiva Siddhanta up to 14th century AD. Origin and development of Saiva Siddhanta up to 14th century AD, which was published in the year 1979 by Madurai Kamaraj University, Tamil Nadu. The second source that I very much I used here is G. Subramania Pillai, who wrote a book on Introduction and History of Saiva Siddhanta, which was published in the year 1946 by Annamalai University, Tamil Nadu. These are the two major texts that I have used for my talk, and along with other supporting documents. When we understand Saiva Siddhanta is one of the very important philosophical traditions that we understand. So before I get into Saiva Siddhanta, I would like to just give you a glimpse of Shaivism. How do we understand Shaivism? Shaivism, of course, one of the ancient religious traditions in the world, not only just in India, in the world, one of the ancient religious traditions. Of course, it goes, the prehistoric period where we don't have such evidence to understand Saiva or Saiva tradition and the worships. But whereas we understand from the Indus Valley civilization, the archaeological evidences where we found in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, a good number of seals that we come across pertaining to Shaiva tradition, the worship of Shiva, the worship of Shakti, the mother goddess. We have sufficient evidences from Indus Valley civilization that we have. So now it is one of the oldest spiritual traditions in the world. Altogether, when I talk about Shaivism. So now, when we understand Shaivism, there are few notable schools of Shaivism supposed to be understood. So in my talk, just I would like to pinpoint, this is going to be a Saiva Siddhanta and introduction. So I would like to start as an introductory level of Shaivism and Saiva Siddhanta along with the other schools of thought. Other schools, when I say that, the other schools of Shaivism. So now as we understand here particularly, there are 7 things that I would like to highlight here in this talk. Entire talk, there are 7 things that I would like to pinpoint. The first one is the Saiva schools, the notable Saiva schools. What are the Saiva schools? What is the definition of Saiva Siddhanta? The origin and development of Saiva Siddhanta at very brief level. The fourth one, what are the supports of the evidences favoring Saiva Siddhanta in relation to origin and development? The fifth one, the canonical scripture, the authoritative scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta. The sixth one, I would like to just emphasize on pre-perennial entities, the foundation entities or the fundamental aspects of Saiva Siddhanta, very brief. And the seventh one, what is the relevance? Is it relevant to learn Saiva Siddhanta? How far it is relevant to the contemporary society today? These are the seven divisions that I would like to make here. Let me start with the first one, the schools of, you know, Shaivism. When we talk about the schools of Shaivism in a chronological order, we understand that the first one, of course, Saiva Siddhanta. Along with Saiva Siddhanta, almost the contemporary period and little later we understand Pasupada Shaivism. Further, we understand Kashmir Shaivism. And of course, we understand, Saiva Advaita or Shiva Advaita. The other one, the sixth one, Siddha Siddhanta. So now, of course, along with the Veera Saivism also part of. There is the other name of Veera Saivism is Lingayatism, where we found in Karnataka of South India. So now these are the six schools considered as the very notable schools of Saivism. The Saivism as a religious spiritual tradition, as we talk about it. Now, when we understand just this lecture is going to be Saiva Siddhanta and introduction. So I would like to focus on Saiva Siddhanta exclusively here. When we understand the definition, this is the second part of my talk. When we understand the term Saiva or Shiva and the Siddhanta, there are two terms you come across. Saiva just comes from the very name of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, as we just derive from the same word that we understand Saiva. We pronounce as Shiva also, Saiva also. The second part of this particular school is known as Siddhanta. There are times people, try to make a kind of against Vedanta is Siddhanta. Of course, in a way, it is there. How we understand Vedanta? Vedanta we understand at the end of Vedas. That is Vedanta. One of the six, schools of Indian philosophy, the Vedic philosophical tradition, we understand that. Vedanta at the end of Vedas, Vedanta. Siddhanta, the literal meaning of Siddhanta is end of end. Or in other words, we can say that the conclusion of conclusions. Very interesting. What is the conclusion of conclusions? We have multiple conclusions. Now, Saiva Siddhanta, when we say that, particularly Siddhanta, it's a conclusion of conclusions. The final of finals. The end of ends. Now, what is exactly here? Saiva Siddhanta of the school of thought did not ignore any other school of thought. It's like inferior or good for nothing. It is not exactly. Saiva Siddhanta takes other schools of thought and it contains some kind of truth in it, and it tries to understand it, what they talk about it in their own standpoint. And this is the way it derives from everything, including atheism, where we talk about atheist who does not believe on Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu or anything related to God. Still, what they talk about it, Saiva Siddhanta very much observes them. What the way it's supposed to be, why they deny the existence of God, if at all. There is no soul. Now, these are all the things have been taken into considerations, and Siddhanta is understood the conclusion of conclusions, which means they come up with a conclusion. Now, Siddhanta takes into the considerations and finally it makes its own conclusion. Therefore, it is known as conclusion of conclusions, which means different thoughts that they concluded something. They concluded even the existence of God, non-existence of God as well. And this is the way that we understand Siddhanta. Now, Saiva Siddhanta, when we understand here, to know Lord Shiva and to realize and to have union with God, Lord Shiva. This is the way that we understand in relation to Saiva Siddhanta. Now, the third one I would like to just emphasize is on origin and development of Saiva Siddhanta. When we talk about origin and development, of course, again, we understand as Shaivism as a spiritual tradition. We understand in relation to the worship of Lord Shiva. When we understand the worship of Lord Shiva, we can just divide into a kind of, even if we take the Vedic period as a part, we understand as the Vedic support in relation to Saivism and non-Vedic. I mean, in a simplest way, if I say that the Vedic Shaivism, or in other words, Puranic Shaivism, the non-Vedic Shaivism, or non-Puranic Shaivism. This is the way you can just divide. The Vedic Shaivism or the Puranic based Shaivism we understand in relation to, of course, Rudra. The other name of Lord Shiva, very much emphasized in Vedas and Upanishads in relation to Rudra. The term Rudra, most of the time, they equalize with Lord Shiva, particularly in relation to destruction. As you know very well, in a popular Hinduism, we understand the creator, protector, and destroyer. The creator we understand as Brahma. The protector or the sustainer we understand as Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu. And destroyer, I won't use the word destroyer exactly properly. It is used as transformer, Lord Shiva Mahesh. So now the Vedic Puranic understanding of Shiva is understood in relation to Rudra as one part. But there are multiple arguments whether the same Rudra is considered as Shiva or someone else. These are all the research still it's going on. The second one we understand non-Vedic or non-Puranic aspect of Shaivism. Now when we understand non-Puranic or Vedic understanding of Shaivism, we can understand two major divisions over there. One is Adi Marga, the other one is Mantra Marga. Adi Marga, Mantra Marga, we understand under Vedic or Puranic based, non-Vedic, non-Puranic based Shaivism. Adi Marga, Mantra Marga. Now under the Adi Marga, there are two Saiva schools have been listed. One is Pasupada Shaivism. In the line of Pasupada Shaivism, we understand Veera Shaivism as well. This too comes under that particular Adi Marga Shaivism or Adi Marga we understand as non-Vedic, non-Puranic Shaiva tradition. On the other side, Mantra Marga again non-Vedic, non-Puranic Shaiva tradition. We understand with Saiva Siddhanta. In the same line, Tamil Saiva Siddhanta is very specifically we understand it, and Siddha Siddhanta, Nath tradition, Goraknath tradition comes here. So this one part under the Mantra Marga. The second part of Mantra Marga still Kashmir Saivism and Shiva Dvaita or Shiva Dvaita we say. So these two schools fall under Kashmir Saivism, Shiva Dvaita, Saiva Siddhanta and Siddha Siddhanta. The other side, Adi Marga, we understand with Pasupada Shaivism and we understand in relation to Veera Shaivism. Now, this is the way we divide all the major 6 schools of Shaivism as non-Vedic or non-Puranic based Shaivism. On the other side, Puranic or Vedic based Shaivism, which is very much understood, a particular term which we understand as Rudra. Now, when we understand Saiva Siddhanta, in the line of Tamil Saiva Siddhanta, because why I said Tamil Saiva Siddhanta, most of the scripture, the canonical scripture, have been written in Tamil language. Therefore, it is known as the other name, Tamil Saiva Siddhanta. Now, this Tamil Saiva Siddhanta, it's not just restricted to only Tamil Nadu alone. Of course, you find in Sri Lanka, and of course, the other parts of the country, Mauritius Island as well, Indonesia, and there are other, for example, In America also you find Saiva Siddhanta Church. Hawaii Island, you find it one of the very good, the building you find it, Hawaii Island, you find it, of course, Saiva Siddhanta Church, they call it. So now, of course, it's spread across the world, and most of the scriptures you find it predominantly in Tamil language. That's really true. Because, when I come to the canonical or authoritative scriptures, I will just tell you that. And finally, if you understand, Saiva Siddhanta as a philosophical tradition very much came into existence or systematized in the 12th century AD by Meyganda Devar. Meyganda Devar, who wrote Sivanyana Bodham, one of the very important or the cornerstone of Saiva Siddhanta text, where we understand Saiva Siddhanta as a philosophical tradition well established from 12th century AD with Meyganda Devar. Now, this is what just origin and development, and further we have multiple, scriptures when I come to the canonical scriptures over the future. The next part, I said, schools of Shaivism, definition of Saiva Siddhanta, origin and development of Saiva Siddhanta. Right now, I have given you. The fourth one, the evidences support which favoring Saiva Siddhanta. Of course, it includes Saivism as well. I would like to just go with again, as I told you, the beginning of my lecture, something related to Indus Valley civilization. That's Sir John Marshall. He makes a very good, a remarkable, statement there in relation to, uh, Shaivism. He says that it is one of the vibrant spiritual traditions in the world which can be dated to, Chalcolithic age, because most of the evidences are the seals pertaining to Pasupati. So we understand that Pasupati, when you understand in relation to Lord Shiva, and of course Shakti, or the worship of Mother God, this is what Sir John Marshall explains in relation to Shaivism. Of course, we can take back Saiva Siddhanta as well. So that seems very much supporting or favoring the tradition of Saiva Siddhanta very much. This is the way we understand it, Sir John Marshall. I would like to just again pinpoint the literary evidences. What are the literary evidences will be very favorable to Shiva or Saiva Siddhanta very specifically? I would like to just take one of the oldest literature or the literary evidence of Sangam literature. The Sangam literature, if you understand that, one of the grammatical Sangam literature we understand, a grammar book is Tolkappiyam. In Tolkappiyam, we understand the term Seyon. It's a Tamil term, of course, Seyon, which is very much related to Lord Shiva. And there is other Sangam literature we understand, Kalitohai. The first stanza also very much favorable to Lord Shiva and the worship of Lord Shiva. Now the earliest Sangam literature talks about Shiva, the worship of Lord Shiva, where we understand it's one of the oldest traditions in the world. And of course, if we understand with further, many scholars have supported the origin and development of Shaivism and Saiva Siddhanta in the line. I would like to just highlight with one of the scholars, notable scholars, because he has translated Tiruvasakam, one of the Saiva texts, which means Saiva Siddhanta text from Tamil to English, that is Tiruvasakam, written by Manika Vasakar, that is G.U. Pope. G.U. Pope translated, of course, Tirukural into English, Tiruvasakam into English, Naladiya into English. So G.U. Pope was telling about Saiva Siddhanta. It's a very remarkable statement about Saiva Siddhanta. He says that Saiva Siddhanta is one of the elaborate influential, valuable philosophical thought in Indian tradition. Elaborate, influential, valuable thought, we find it in the philosophical traditions of India. So now it is, you know, one of the very good way we understand how Saiva Siddhanta comes in through the line. So now these are all the supports. There are multiple other supports. Just you know, confined with these all the things right now. The archaeological evidences, of course, literary evidences, and the scholars who talk about the importance of Saiva Siddhanta and its antiquity. That's what we understand. Now I would like to just emphasize on the fifth one in a way, canonical scripture or authoritative scripture of Saiva Siddhanta. Now, Saiva Siddhanta scripture we understand in relation to two levels. This is what two important, you know, the scriptures they take as canonical or authoritative scriptures to know the philosophy of Saiva Siddhanta. The first one is known as Stotra. Stotra, which we understand as praising of Lord Shiva, it has been written in the form of hymns. It has been written in the form of songs. Hymns or songs, we talk about it, is a kind of song which the saints, the Saiva saints have sung, and they portray Lord Shiva, they adore, they worship Lord Shiva from volumes of stotra. Very particularly it is known as Panniru Tirumurai or Panniru Tirumuraigal in Tamil. 12 sacred scriptures. If we roughly translate Panniru Tirumuraigal, 12 sacred scriptures. Now these 12 sacred scriptures have been sung by Saiva saints, and where they explain the philosophy of Saiva Siddhanta. So there is a first, group of scriptures we understand as 12 Tirumurais or 12 sacred scriptures. The second important authoritative scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta is, Sastras. The first one we understand Stotras. The second set of books, the authoritative scriptures, are known as Sastras. Sastras we understand as a philosophical treatise. There are 14 philosophical treatises which, give us an entire Saiva Siddhanta philosophy. 12 sacred scriptures, 12 Tirumuraigal, 14 Sastras, the 14 philosophical treatises we understand in relation to Saiva Siddhanta. Please note here, along with 28 Saivagamas. So Saivagamas are 28 in numbers, which is very much important, which explains about Lord Shiva, the relationship between Shiva and the soul, the Jiva, and the bondage and liberation. Those are all the things we understand in relation to 28 Saivagamas, and along with them, the 12 sacred scriptures, which is known as Panniru Tirumuraigal. The second one, the 14 philosophical treatises, which are known as Sastras. The Sastras and Sastras. So now, these all the scriptures are very important to know, particularly Saiva Siddhanta and its philosophy. I would like to just highlight one of the scriptures here, particularly from 14 philosophical treatises, which is known as Sivanyana Bodham. Sivanyana Bodham was written by Meygandar, as I just told you just before. There are 12 sutras. The 12 sutras summarizes, the entire Saiva Siddhanta philosophy. 12 sutras, starting from the first sutra to the 12th sutra, exactly just, it has been divided into multiple sections in a way. how to understand Pati, Lord Shiva, how to understand Pasu, soul, how to understand Tasa, which is known as bondage. So these are all the things we come across in 12 sutras of Vijnana Bodham, which is one of the foundational aspects of Saiva Siddhanta philosophy, the cornerstone of Saiva Siddhanta philosophy. And there are multiple commentaries on Sivayana Bodham we have. They are also important. And this is what we understand the canonical or authoritative scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta. Now, when we understand these scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta, we must know that the sixth one, I would like to just emphasize a little more here, three perennial entities, three foundations of the philosophy of Saiva Siddhanta. What is that? Because if in future, as I was talking to the rector and Gargi ma'am, and they wanted to have a kind of series of lecture, if possible, we'll see that. If time permits, also we'll do that in future. The entire Saiva Siddhanta philosophy, one by one, about God, soul, bondage, and liberation. What the way they talk about bondage, how do they understand liberation? Those all we'll be talking about. So this particular introduction, I would like to just emphasize on three perennial entities, a very brief. They are called three perennial entities, the foundational entities, the basic entities to know Saiva Siddhanta philosophy in nutshell. I would like to just quote from, one of the authoritative scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta is Tirumandiram, which is written by Tirumular. Tirumandiram, which was written by Tirumular. There are 3,000 of, songs you come across in that particular text itself, Tirumandiram. I would like to quote from one of the songs which summarizes entire Saiva Siddhanta philosophy for us. I just, tell in Tamil and then I paraphrase it in English. The Tirumandaram song is just taken from 1115, 1115. Tirumandaram 1115, which goes like this. I just tell in Tamil, then I just paraphrase it in English. What is that? Tirumula says, Padi Pasu Pasam enum Pahar Mondrin. Padi Pasu Pasam enum Pahar Mondrin. Padi Pasu Pasam Bol. Padiye Pol Pasu Pasam Anadi. Second line. Padi Pasu Pasam enum Pahar Mondrin. Padiye Pol Pasu Pasam Anadi. Padiyனை சென்றணுகா பதி பசு பசு பாசம் பதியினை சென்றணுகா பசு பாசம் பதியணுகில் பசு பாசம் இல்லாதே. I just repeat these four lines, actually four stanzas. The first one goes like this. Padi pasu pasam enum pahar monjin, which means there are three perennial entities. Padi, pasu, pasam. Padi denotes Lord Shiva, the ultimate reality, the supreme reality. Pasu stands for soul, the individual soul, Jiva, Atman, whatever term that we talk about it. Pasam, which means the bondage. The bondage which we understand in relation to Pasu, which means the soul is under the bondage. Since the soul is under the bondage, the soul is not able to realize the original quality of itself. That is the biggest issue here. And then the soul is not able to reach or know Pati, who is called Lord Shiva. So this is the way the first stanza or the first line goes of Tirumandira. So Padi Pasu Pasam enum Pahar Mondin, Padinai Pol Pasu Pasam Anadi. Padinai pol pasu pasam anadi, which means the second line, Padi, God is eternal. In the same way, the soul and bondage also eternal. So, the first one we understand Padi, Pasu, Pasam, three parallel entities. The second line talks about what is the nature of that Padi, Pasu, Pasam. All the three are eternal. That is the second stanza. Just I am summarizing. The third stanza of Tirumandram says that Padinai Chandranha Pasu Pasam, which means Padi is supreme reality, Lord Shiva, and completely perfect, pure. Therefore, the impure Pasu, the impure Pasa, not able to reach Pati, means not able to reach God because they are impure. Since they are impure, they are not able to reach the pure. So the holiness, in other word, we understand. The holy God cannot be just, reached by this impure, unholy, the soul, the bonded soul. Therefore, there is a big gap between Pati and Pasu, which means there is a big gap between God and soul. Very interesting. I'm just summarizing here. The fourth stanza of Tirumandaram, if Padi, out of grace, if comes closer to, Pasu means soul, definitely this bondage cannot come closer to soul. There comes divine grace. So Tirumular emphasizes on the fourth stanza how Shiva's grace is important for deliverance, liberation. Anugraha, where we understand Saktini Pada, that is other word, the descendants of Lord Shiva's grace, and definitely the soul will be liberated. And of course, there are other stages also there. Soul just, cannot just experience with Lord Shiva's grace immediately. There are many preparatory ways supposed to undergo. So now what Tirumandram talks about Saiva Siddhanta philosophy here, three parallel entities. There is God, there is soul, the soul is under the bondage. Now when we understand bondage, that's again philosophically Saiva Siddhanta explains in relation to three different, types of bondage. The type of bondage we understand Anava, Karma, Maya. They explain further. So it's a very big topic, very big philosophy to understand it. So Anava, which we understand as ego, you know, Karma we understand in relation to action, the individual action, of course, the good and bad, which, you know, affect on the recycle of birth, where we understand the birth and death and rebirth, the samsara chakra, in relation to karma. That's what Saiva Siddhanta further explains. And Maya, the fetter, which again binds the human being. So this is what we understand in relation to pasam or pasa, the bondage. So now all together, when we understand three perennial entities of Saiva Siddhanta, Tirumula explains very clearly in his Tirumandaram, particularly 1115th Tirumandaram, says that this is all together to understand Saiva Siddhanta philosophy in nutshell, in very brief. Now, I would like to just, further, explain how Saiva Siddhanta philosophy is relevant. This would be the, last aspect of my talk. Because if time permits, we can, have some kind of conversation, a full dialogue also. Now, as we understand here, what is the relevance? We understand Shaivism is one of the oldest or ancient philosophical tradition, spiritual traditions in the world. Saiva Siddhanta also one of the important schools of Shaivism. Now, how is this relevant to the contemporary society? Is it necessary to read the scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta the 12 sacred books, 14 philosophical treatises, 28 Sivagamas or Saivagamas. What are the things that we are going to learn from there? Really, it is very relevant. I would like to just highlight two things to pinpoint how it is relevant. Saiva Siddhanta philosophy is one of the holistic philosophy, I would say. Holistic. When I emphasize here holistic, I would like to just, relate to IQ, EQ, and SQ. Intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, and spiritual quotient. Saiva Siddhanta philosophy very much relevant to intelligence of human, where they are looking for the knowledge to develop the cognitive development. Yes, of course, Saiva Siddhanta philosophy teaches what is human, the purpose of human life, what is the meaning of human life, is there God, if at all God, how do we understand? These are all the things very much discussed philosophically in Saiva Siddhanta, where you can have a rational talk, conversation. So intelligent quotient. Saiva Siddhanta philosophy closely, you know, goes to the holistic development. The first one, intelligent quotient, of course, in a very pinpoint way, if I say that Patinyana and Pasunyana, those are all the things very much emphasized here. Patinyana means you can understand as a Sivanyana. Pasunyana means you can understand the jnana of or the wisdom of the individual. What is the relationship between, these two? How do we relate to, the ultimate reality? Those are all the things very much emphasized here. So one of the holistic development which is understood as intelligent quotient. Of course, the other holistic development when you say emotion, of course, we are emotional being, very much related to feelings. Saiva Siddhanta emphasizes on feelings very much, how to understand the human feelings, the human emotions, how to relate to the day-to-day life, how to relate to the fellow human beings, whether at home, whether at the workplace. Those are all the things we can understand from Saiva Siddhanta philosophy. Very specifically, sixth sense. We know that five senses in relation to the other creature. When we understand with the human being with the sixth sense, Saiva Siddhanta philosophy emphasizes on sixth sense very much, where we can relate to, something related to, the ethical, moral values and principles. Then, of course, SQ, spiritual quotient. That is also one of the component of human being. Intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, and spiritual quotient. So we are spiritual being. Saiva Siddhanta philosophy very much quenches our thirst in relation to spirituality, which it talks about Patinyana, which it talks about Sivanyana, which means the wisdom of Lord Shiva, where the person who realizes oneself, where the person has to understand self-realization, where the person who comes closer to God. These are all the things we understand in relation to spiritual quotient. So now, all together, Saiva Siddhanta philosophy is very relevant in relation to intelligence, in relation to emotion or feelings, in relation to spirituality. The second thing I would like to highlight here, Saiva Siddhanta philosophy very much emphasizes on Sat-Asat relationship. Here, Sat as we understand being, Asat we understand as non-being, but particularly being when we understand in relation to God, non-being when you understand that in relation to empirical world. So now, Saiva Siddhanta philosophy in nutshell, very relevant in relation to Sat Visaram and Parobakaram. I'm using two terms here, Sat Visaram and Parobakaram. What is exactly here? The Sat Visaram we can understand the individual relation with God, In other words, I would say that vertical relationship. It's a kind of vertical relationship, an individual relation with Almighty, who is called Lord Shiva, which is known as Sat Visaram. So the person must keep this relationship well, a good relationship with God. Now, Saiva Siddhanta does not limit it to only the relationship of individual to only Lord Shiva. Saiva Siddhanta equally emphasizes para upakaram, which means the person must have close relationship with the fellow human beings, the other creatures, and the nature as well, which means the vertical and horizontal relationship. The vertical relationship with God, the horizontal relationship with the fellow human beings and all other living creatures and the nature, which means Saiva Siddhanta philosophy promotes peace, harmony, spirit of tolerance, mutual appreciation. These are all the things very much emphasized in Saiva Siddhanta philosophy. In other words, we can say that which emphasizes on non-violence. Saiva Siddhanta philosophy emphasizes on truth speaking. Saiva Siddhanta philosophy emphasizes on non-stealing. And of course, it emphasizes on chastity. It emphasizes on non-professional. As we understand from, the other philosophical tradition like Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, as we understand from Buddhism and Jainism, the same way we understand with Saiva Siddhanta. So Saiva Siddhanta philosophy is very much relevant to the contemporary society, friends. So therefore, it is not just ancient religious tradition or spiritual tradition which does not have relevance to the contemporary society. It is ever relevant. It is one of the very relevant philosophical spiritual traditions in the world. So therefore, the holistic development in relation to Saiva Siddhanta and in relation to Sat Asat relationship, where we understand, Sat Visaram and Para Upakaram, Saiva Siddhanta philosophy is one of the important philosophical traditions for human beings. It is very relevant to the contemporary society. So now, there are 7 things just I have explained it in brief under the lecture on Saiva Siddhanta introduction. I just summarize it again which I have covered it as a heading. I started with the schools of Saivism. I have just, defined the term Saiva Siddhanta. Third one, I just briefly explained about origin and development of Saiva Siddhanta. The fourth one, I was just emphasizing on the supports or evidences which covering Saiva Siddhanta. The fifth one, I was just emphasizing on the canonical or authoritative scriptures of Saiva Siddhanta. The sixth one, 3 perennial entities of Saiva Siddhanta, where we try to understand from Tirumular of Tirumandaram, where I, just recited Tirumandaram and paraphrased into brief. The seventh one, I said how it is relevant to the contemporary society. So this is overall about Saiva Siddhanta as an introduction. Just I have summarized it very briefly. It has to go long. A lot of things need to be discussed, but still, just I have brief what is exactly Saiva Siddhanta to understand in nutshell within this just hardly 40 minutes, if I thought. So just the 40 minutes, just I summarized it. It's not sufficient. Long way to go. And just to initiate what is Saiva Siddhanta, and it is one of the very important philosophical traditions in India. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Now over to the organizer. Thank you.